factoring quadratic with a negative leading coefficient, we want the squared term, whatever number's in front of that, we want it to be positive. So since it's not positive, I'm going to take the negative out. So I don't know why I keep getting this. So when I take the negative out, I change the signs. I change all signs. So it works like this. A negative 2 becomes a positive 2, and I've got my w squared. A negative w becomes a positive w, and a positive 21 becomes a negative 21. Now, this trinomial inside, that's what I'm going to factor next. Well, I'm going to see if I can factor it. So here's how to see if you can factor it. You multiply the first and the last, so 2 times 21 equals 42. So I want the factors of 42. So 1 times 42, 42 divided by 2 is 21. 42 divided by 3 is 14. 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, 6 and 7. Now I want to see if I'm actually going to use the AC method for factoring. I want to see, and we're working with what the trinomial in the parentheses. So forget about what you had originally. We've already changed that because we took a negative out. So we want the factors of 21 that when we subtract them equal, now if there's nothing in front of a variable, it's a 1. So equal 1. You're always working backwards with the AC method. So the factors of 21 that when I subtract them equal 1 are 6 and 7, because 7 take away 6 is 1. So I bring down my first term, and this negative here, I'm just going to highlight it for now so that I remember to bring it down later, because that's going to go in front of our original, in front of our final answer. Sorry about that, didn't mean original. Okay, so bring down the first term, 2w squared, bring down the sign after it. The combination that works, you want to use the biggest number first and put your letter with that. So here's what you have. You have a 7w, but you want a 1w. So you have to take 6 w's away, because these two in the middle have to add up to the one above it. And then you bring down your last term, which is a negative 21. You make one set of parentheses around the first two numbers, and you see what you can take out of there, what they have in common. Well, they have a w in common. So I'm going to take a w out. I have a 2 and 2 w's. I take a w out. That's a 2 and a w left. Then I have a plus sign. I have a 7 and a w. I took the w out, so that's a 7 left. Bring down your parentheses and the sign after it. Now these two numbers here, you do not put parentheses around them. You just look at them. So between 6 and 21, you ask yourself, what's the biggest number I can divide both of those by? And that would be 3. Okay, so now you write down what's in the parentheses, 2w plus 7, and you write down what's not in the parentheses. They have to go together, w minus 3, and then this negative that you took out at the very beginning has to go in front. The negative just carries down, and that's how you do that. Okay, so let's do this again. Take the negative out, change all the signs. So a negative 3 is going to change to a positive 3, y squared. Negative 14y changes to a positive 14y. Negative 15 changes to a positive 15. I take the first and the last number and multiply them. 3 times 15 equals 45. I start dividing. 45 divided by 1 is 45. 45 divided by 3 is 15. I'm only using odd numbers because even numbers won't go into odd numbers, so you can't use any even numbers to divide out evenly. 45 divided by 5 is 9. 7 doesn't work, and we've already got 9, so we're done. Okay, we want to add to get 14. So that's 5 and 9. I'm going to bring down my first term and the sign after it. the biggest number for the combination goes first with the variable. I have 9y, I want 14y. So I have to add 5y to that because those two have to add up to the one above it. Bring down the last term. The parentheses around the first two numbers, I can divide those numbers by 3 and they each have a y in common. So I have a 3 and 2 y's. I took a 3 and 1 y out, so that's a y left over, plus 9 divided by 3 is 3, and I have a y that I took it out. Bring down the sign after the parentheses. Look at these numbers and see what you can divide them by. The biggest number I can divide 5 and 15 by is 5. So, let me move this thing out of the way for a second. Give me a sec. So, I have what's in parentheses. Everything that's not in parentheses goes together, 3y plus 5. And then the negative sign that you took out at the very beginning, that has to be placed in front in your answer. Okay, you don't want your square term to be negative, so take it out. Change all the signs. Negative u squared is a negative changes to positive u squared. 8u, positive 8u changes to negative 8u. Positive 20 changes to negative 20. Okay, I want the factors of 20 that when I subtract them equal 8. So the factors of 20, 20 divided by 1 is 20, 20 divided by 2 is 10, 3 doesn't work, 20 divided by 4 is 5, and you're repeating. Now I want to subtract to get 8. So 10 take away 2 gives me 8. So I bring down the first term and the sign after it. The biggest number that works goes next with the variable. Now I have a negative 10u, but I want a negative 8u, so that 2 has to be positive. Because those two in the middle have to add up to the one above it, and a negative 10 and a positive 2 is a negative 8. Bring down the next term, negative 20. Put parentheses around the first two. I have a u in common that I can take out. So I have 2 u's. I took one out, so that's a u left, then a minus sign. I have a 10 and a u. I took a u out, so that's a 10 left. Bring down the plus sign. These two numbers that are left over, you can divide those by 2. So I have what's in the parentheses. I have what's not in the parentheses, u plus 2, and the negative sign that you took out at the very beginning.